Well, awesome. Are you feeling ready? Should we actually start?
Yeah, I'm in. You're my very first podcast since the book came out. So I'm trying
Yay!
to remind myself that this isn't about me. This is about this message that I'm trying to get out into the world, so to help myself be less nervous about all of these podcasts, because I'm not one to put myself out there, but it's not me that I'm putting out there. It's this
It's this
helping
book, it's this
people.
topic. Yeah,
Yeah, I just want to help people be better allies, and help all the people that are scared speak. And if I don't talk, they won't know what to do. I can't be silent and complain that they're silent. So, yes, I'm ready. I'll do it.
I love it. That's great. And no pressure on my end. This is going to be just nice, easy
I
conversation.
know.
Let
I
it
picked
flow.
you on purpose
Yay!
because you're awesome.
Oh, thank you. I needed to hear that today.
Oh, you're amazing. I think you're amazing. I love this stuff you're doing, and I love this stuff you're saying. And you're the only other person who wrote a Choose Your Own Adventure book.
All right, we're Insta friends. Definitely. I need to keep you around.
Absolutely. I don't go anywhere.
I love it. Well, welcome, Amelia, to the Be the Glitter podcast, where we talk about tough topics with giggles and we leave inspiration that sticks.
Well, we are great at that.
Yes, we are. And I'm going to allow you to do your own introduction, as I don't want you to forget to mention how awesome you are, that you do all this. You wear a lot of different hats and you help a lot of different industries. And then we'll talk about this really cool thing that you just did. You just launched out there.
So, to introduce myself, uh, I I have been working in the at the intersection of tech and gender for 30 years now. I used to own an IT company actually for 15 years that specialized in law firms. And I sold my IT company about 15 years ago and started a new company that does all of the things that IT people don't do, which is basically the human centered side of tech. And it morphed into helping people face their discomfort. And I teach people to get comfortable with all of the things that make them uncomfortable. So I actually teach meditation, I teach communication, I teach technology, and I teach gender. And I do a bunch of things that have to do with getting, for law firms, that have to do with getting documents to be gender accurate, which is a term that I use over gender neutral because gender neutral freaks people out. This is a not necessarily part of an introduction of me, but so I'll come
Yeah.
back to it. But I have been teaching gender for a long time and decided to write a book about it.
I
So
love it. And the book is called,
the full title of the book is Gender Inclusion at Work, a guide to supporting transgender and non-binary employees, clients, and colleagues.
I love it. I love that. And I remember in our warm up meeting where you were talking about the whole story as to what got you writing this to begin with, and then what got you rewriting it.
Yeah, I've written this book several times actually, which is very strange.
It's
I
finally born. Your book
No,
baby has
exactly. Wait,
just
I
been born.
have
It's
it.
a newborn baby book.
I have a
Oh,
book. It's a whole book, and it's big. It's really big. Uh,
you now know why they call them book babies.
oh my
It's like
gosh.
you finally delivered that thing. And it's like I can't wait to get it out.
I told my daughter that this book is her little sibling. I have two kids now.
One
So
that's nearly 500 pages long.
yes, both children I can't believe came out of me, to be honest. I'm stunned by both of them sometimes. So I'll tell you how I started to write the book. I was teaching gender inclusion and doing consulting work in tech and gender. And I'm a process consultant. I was a process consultant and a change management specialist. And when you process consult, anybody who does this for a living knows that businesses have developed little silos. So every department is a completely separate little silo. And in the tech space, I would see it because one department would buy software to do a thing, but they wouldn't talk to anybody else. And another department would buy different software to do the same thing, and they didn't talk to anybody else. And I would sometimes get brought in because there was so much software that everybody was using. Nothing was coordinated with anything else. It was just a big giant mess. And coincidentally, when I started teaching gender, I started to notice the exact same thing. So the marketing department didn't get the same, doesn't, isn't doing the same things that the customer service department is doing. Or you give 1 2 hour talk, and usually they're voluntary to anybody who shows up, which is fair. But then you don't, then they're like, oh, this is great. We've learned so much. Bye bye. And I realized that, but I didn't talk to your facilities department and they don't know what to do. So I ended up creating a book that I call a choose your own adventure business book because it's 4 chapters that everybody should read. It's 4 chapters about why we care about this, about terminology, about some really common do's and don'ts, about the why not be silent and to
Mhm.
help people with the discomfort of not knowing what to say. So I've got some really practical, like, what do you do when you misgender someone? What do you do when someone asks where the bathrooms are? All kinds of things like that. But then there's 10 more chapters that are a department. Each one is a different department in a business. So you read the first 4 chapters and then read whatever department makes sense for you.
I
There's,
love that. So, especially because you have worked so intimately with so many of these departments yourself,
yes,
um, just to give us a little taste, what different departments are in, you don't have to give all 10 if you don't want, but just to give an idea of what these different
sure.
departments are.
Well, the biggest um, leadership, HR, customer service, marketing and branding, legal, and IT, which are 2 spaces that I have been working in for a long time. Um, there's also facilities and security, safety and security, which is one that I know doesn't get a lot of attention. Um,
Mhm.
Sales also. So there are 10 of them. There's also a chapter at the end that is just case studies on different kinds of businesses and how they've done it. And I tried to be really honest about how some businesses did it. So, for example, the city of Philadelphia is one. And I'm from Philly. I'm very Philly. I'm a big go birds, all Philly, all Wooder Ice. I'm Philly. I
Love
try
it.
not to say John in the middle of an interview too, because that's nobody knows what it means unless you're from here. But Philadelphia tries really hard and sometimes they succeed and sometimes they don't. And I think it's really important to highlight businesses and entities that are making the effort but to show the reality of it because it's messy. This is hard. And
Yeah,
everybody isn't always going to get it right. And I think one of the things that keeps people from doing anything is that they're so afraid that they're going to say or do the wrong thing that they do nothing. And while the world is on fire, we can't do nothing anymore.
right.
So
It's so
that's where the
true.
book was born.
I love that. And I love how earlier you were saying that even we can sometimes feel a little scared or nervous or have a little perfectionism. And we have to remind ourselves that we can't be silent. We don't want anybody else to be silent. So we can't even complain that somebody else is silent if we are.
If we are.
So it's really
Exactly.
important that we find our own courage to to speak up and to create even more safe space to mess up. It's okay. We would much rather somebody not be silent and to just help them with any correction or suggestions.
Yeah.
The last thing that I think our rainbow community wants to be is violent and aggressive. I think we want to be as,
We're tired.
oh gosh,
We're just tired. I
I
mean,
would much rather hug somebody
yeah.
and say, bless you for trying. Let's actually, I would never say bless you. I'm not sure why I said that. I think I was thinking of my mom would have like this Southern Illinois thing where she would say bless your heart. But I think she also didn't
That usually
realize that
means
was like
you're
the negative, right?
exactly.
Yeah, see, language is really important, and the intention behind the language is really important.
It
So,
is important, and so facing discomfort is a huge piece of what I do, and I talk all
thank
the
you.
time about tech and gender, and people always say, "Why do you teach such completely unrelated things?" But they're exactly the same. People are afraid of them, and when you're afraid of something, the inability to stop and look inward. Look, all of the administrations across all of the countries that are slamming trans people right now, they're counting on the fact that it's uncomfortable when you don't know enough, that you'll be quiet and you'll comply. And as a whole, I think one of the biggest problems we have as people is to sit in our own discomfort, to sit in stillness and be uncomfortable and be vulnerable. And I can give you a great example because, to your point, we are not trying to piss off people. We are just trying to live our lives and get along with everybody.
Yeah,
Sometimes when somebody misgenders whoever, somebody misgenders someone, what they might not realize is that that person has been misgendered. And I'll just use me. So I was at this is actually a story in my book. I was at a restaurant with a girlfriend of mine, and a woman had misgendered me. I had been misgendered at least 70 times that day. I mean, and honestly, that's not even hyperbolic. Every single human who interacted with me misgendered me. And I take it, whatever, I deal. But by the, 71st time, I was done. I was just done. And I was so frustrated. And one of the things that I hear people say all the time is, trans people are so sensitive. They're so difficult. Why do they have to make such a big deal? But you don't always realize, and this is with anything, this isn't just about being
yeah,
trans. When somebody is done and huffs or snaps, maybe they've had a really bad day. Maybe something else maybe it's not about you, you know? And
yeah,
the ability to be uncomfortable in that moment and pause and say, okay, I did do a thing. I don't know if that reaction is matching what I did, but I understand that you're a human and I don't know what's gone on in your day. We have such a hard time, especially when we did do something that wasn't right.
yeah. My friend Dee said it really well in a clip of his of yeah, she has this incredible way of creating metaphors out of nowhere. But she was saying how we're all like dancing on the dance floor, essentially.
Yeah.
And we, because there's so many of us in this beautiful world of ours, we're definitely going to step on each other's toes.
Right.
And it might not be intentional, and we hope it's not intentional. And what the polite thing to do is to say, I'm sorry. How do I dance around you better next time?
Right.
That's all anyone is asking, is that we can just be respectful and find a little time to actually get our own defensive guard down and listen to people. Just see people for who they are and try to have some empathy. I think that will go so far. But I
Yeah.
think it's the fear factor. I think fanning the flames of fear makes people almost feel addicted to the uncomfort, addicted to the conflict. I mean, are you seeing any of that in the workplace where people are? that you're training are just resisting actually being cool and going along with the flow and being cool with gender equity because it's almost too comfortable to have this default where they're not supposed to be cool with it.
I'm really glad that you asked that because I will tell you that of every business that I've trained, not one single person is against it, is an obstacle, is frustrated. People, it isn't true. Everything that they're saying, all of the stuff that they're talking about, and all of the stuff that you see online, people are really brave online. People are really comfortable saying things online that even if they don't believe, they just want conflict, like you're saying. There's only really two states. There's love and fear. And some people live in fear and some people live in love. And if you live in fear, you are absolutely going to antagonize as much as you possibly can. But when I train whatever kind of business it is, it's law firms, nonprofits, IT companies, they are interested and fascinated. And yes, sometimes people know zero, you know, but the looks on people's faces and the questions that people ask, and they care. People care. People
Yeah,
care about one another. It's just a fact, you know? And I think we need to not listen to what I'm watching what's happening in the UK, and it's falling so fast. The US has been doing this since January, and the UK just dropped. But the other trainers that I talk to, they're having the same experience. The people that are in sessions, they're interested and they have questions. One of the things that I really love about teaching is that I get to give people a space to ask the things that they're afraid to ask. There's so
yeah,
many things. People just want to know the answer, but they don't know who to ask it to. And then they listen to all of this ridiculous propaganda. It's all false.
it's
So,
all false. And I truly 100% agree with you. I really believe that most people are good. Most people are genuinely good and kind and have the ability to live with courageous hearts.
yeah. But they're scared though.
They're
They're
scared.
scared. That's
And
fear. That's okay.
unfortunately, that fear it can be exacerbated unnecessarily.
Yeah.
And instead, I think it's okay that we continue to invite curiosity. It's like, okay, so you're scared.
Right.
Let's create more safe space where you can courageously be curious and ask these questions.
Right. And it is fair. There are certain questions you don't want to ask. And I like answering that stuff. I am a good place to ask questions because I will tell somebody uh, that isn't a question that you here's why we don't ask that question.
Right.
Like, did trans people have the surgery? I wrote an article about that on LinkedIn. It's not a good question. But when people ask me, I open myself up to be someone that you can ask questions to because a lot of Gen X's and baby boomers were taught really wrong information. We just learned things incorrectly. We learned fourth grade science. Well, I had science. I had health class in fourth grade, but I know it's like seventh grade science now, but which was completely oversimplified for children and not accurate and certainly not current. That
No,
was a long time. I don't want to date myself, but I am a Gen Xer, and it was a long time ago that I took, junior high health class. And that
yeah,
information isn't right anymore. So sometimes people ask questions that seem unkind because they don't know different.
yeah,
And I'm happy to explain that.
yeah,
I actually, to your point about curiosity, I made the second chapter of my book a free download because it's the chapter on terminology and it's myth busts certain things and it talks about the history of trans and non-binary people, and it it is a way to satisfy that curiosity without having to talk to anybody, you know?
yeah, yeah. And then they have a reference in which to have a conversation with somebody else that they might feel safe enough or brave enough to
Right.
open up the conversation now that they have some terminology to aid the conversation at least.
Yes, I'm trying to figure out some kind of a way to easily let people ask me questions without in some kind of like forum space. I haven't figured out what it is yet because a lot of the things I am a techie person, but I'm also a Gen Xer, so I understand that like a Discord server is not a good idea for Gen Xers and baby boomers. They're not going to suddenly download, Discord and learn how to use it. And I have to figure out the right space for it. So if anybody watches this and has an idea, I am very open to
The first
suggestions.
thing I thought of actually was I love how you posted on LinkedIn something about how our our movies from the Gen X era did not age well. How would you put that?
I think exactly like that. Our movies didn't age well. They're
And therefore, like also our gender knowledge didn't age well
a
either, or
lot of the
something
stuff
like
we
that.
learned did not age well. The information we learned did not age well. We got a lot of bad information. We are we're the drink from the garden hose generation. We're the I'll give you something to be sorry about. We're the be quiet. We did the best in COVID because you I did great through COVID. You want me to be alone all the time? Sure, that's fine.
I
I,
walked literally like 10 miles a day, 20,000 steps a day with my dog.
yeah.
Or sometimes, oh wait, way more than 20,000 steps. I mean, it was ridiculous. I'd post like a little screenshot of how much I walked, and they're like, "You did that on foot?" Like, yeah,
Yeah.
half the time in clogs too, which was really good for my physique. But I think a really good idea would be to have some kind of movie streaming party or some kind of inclusive, like, remember, this movie that we all thought was so awesome, and
So bad. Some
now
of them are
it aged
painful.
so terribly. And
Some
this
of
is
them,
why. And you can pause it and be like, does
uh,
anybody want to say why this is no longer kosher right now? Like, why this is not.
the one that I always think about that I put in that post is 16 Candles because we all loved 16 Candles and we all had a crush on Jake and everybody thought it was so romantic. But he gave his drunk girlfriend to another kid who while she was unconscious so that he could go find a different girl. I mean,
It's so terrible.
it's horrible. And you don't realize, and some things I get it, some things we love because we grew up on it. So we still love the memory of the nostalgia of it. I get that. But you don't really realize how bad the crap we grew up with is until you show your kid. Like, oh, I've got to show you this great movie I loved when I was a kid. And then you play it for your child and their friends, and they are horrified.
Oh, yeah.
Horrified.
My dad learned that he's now 87, right? So he would, oh, you, I remember I finally found this movie. We found it to be so romantic back in the day. And then he'd play it, and my sister and I would just look at him like, are you kidding
Right.
me? And
It's
he
all
just
generations. I mean, we just
I
learned.
guess that's not okay anymore. I mean, consent,
No, there was no such thing.
there was no such thing. It for some reason was considered romantic for a guy to force himself on somebody. And
Yeah.
oh, I mean, some
Mm.
of that stuff is downright triggering now.
Right. And that's the thing, we don't look at some of the things. We don't stop and think like, wait, did this thing I learned? One thing that a lot I learned this from teaching. At first, I was really taken aback at how many people would say, like, did they have the surgery when you tell someone that somebody transitioned? And it wasn't until I'd been teaching for a while that I realized there's a demographic of people who ask that question. And it's because we learned as kids that that's what transition meant. The word transition was defined by a medical transition. And that's all we knew. Now, there's a whole other topic about asking that question of people and not realizing how invasive it is. That speaks to how we were taught to dehumanize trans people. And a great movie that I will, anybody who is curious, there's a documentary on Netflix called Disclosure. Have you seen it?
Oh, no, not yet.
Amazing. It is a documentary. I think Laverne Cox produced it. All of the commentators in it are trans actors, directors, but it's a documentary about the way that media, TV, and film have portrayed trans people through the years. And it shows trans people even talking about this was all we had to see, and it promotes transphobia. It just it made us a punchline. And so a lot of
Yeah,
us grew up completely dehumanizing trans people, and the fact that you don't know any makes it easier.
right. Yeah, exactly. And um and how often just a man wearing a dress is considered absolutely hilarious instead of just okay,
And
you
how
know?
many trans people are serial killers? You know, the villain is the trans person
Yeah.
every time.
And they
The
trick people, you know?
Right. It's it's a great documentary. I mean, it's incredible. Especially if you're Gen X or older, because it you see things that you didn't remember how they were, and you see how some of this got into the public consciousness. You know, what that I didn't even realize some of this. You know, and I am a trans person, and I didn't realize some of this. You know,
I remember when Crocodile Dundee came out
yeah, that's a big one.
and that scene in the bar where there's a trans woman hitting on him and he has the audacity to like lift her skirt
Yeah.
and expose her to everybody and everyone laughs and he's cajoling and saying it's a sheep or whatever, you know, and going on and everyone's just like ha ha
Yeah.
ha ha ha
It's
and slapping
amazing.
him on the back and almost like cheering him on for that. And I remember even then just going, that is not okay.
Right.
Like,
Right.
why am I the only one who's going
Right.
that I felt so bad for that person. So, and it's just a movie, you know, to be like, it's just a movie. And it's like, yeah, but is it
Yeah.
though? You know, like we're normalizing that kind of behavior, and that's just not okay.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, people were, when I wrote that post on LinkedIn, people started responding with different movies, you know, and that was a huge one that everybody was talking about. That one really stuck with a lot of people. I have to say, I'm very grateful that I didn't remember that movie at all until everybody brought it up again. I had totally forgotten about it. I was glad.
Yeah, yeah. So that's I love hearing these positive stories that you are in the workplace doing these trainings and you're not experiencing the phobia and the aggression that is so easy for people to do, for example, on TikTok when it's 8 o'clock at night and they're
Right.
comfortably at home after a few beers.
And it's not to say that I never see it. You know, I do see it. I had one law firm who the executive committee didn't want to meet with me because of my pronouns. You know, it's not that it doesn't happen ever, but by and large, it doesn't happen the way that the administration is portraying it. You know,
Okay.
people aren't policing the bathrooms. And yes, there are some people who do. And yes, people are having a terrible time, you know, but it isn't everyone, you know, and there are a
Yeah.
lot of people that we think aren't okay with us because they're silent. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote this book, because I need to help people not be silent anymore. You know,
Yeah.
you don't realize that when you're quiet, and this is with anything, you know, somebody makes a like a I was in a meeting once and somebody make like a casual she's like a casual kind of a rape joke. The no, the eyes, in the context of work. And I am that person. I will never not say something. But
Yeah.
people don't realize though, when you're quiet, when things like that happen, people notice that nobody spoke up, and sometimes we think that everyone is against us because everyone's quiet. And there's so many people who aren't quiet because they agree with what's happening. They're quiet because they don't know what to say or do. And my book is incredibly practical. It's just actionable things that you can do in your workplace, because now you can't say that you don't know what to do. This is what you do. This is what you do when somebody transitions. When someone comes to HR and explains that they want to transition, here's what you do. I also have I have 3 sections in the book about resistance, about how do you tackle when there are people, because I don't want to make it sound like everybody's on board, because that is not the truth.
Okay.
But there are practical steps for what to do when there is resistance, and how to
Hmm.
handle that, and to understand that, find out what it is that someone's uncomfortable with. Find
Hmm.
out what the issue actually is. And there are practical steps for that. It, there is always something to say or do, it's just that we don't know what it is. So everyone's quiet.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And is that the reason why you wrote it in the first place? Or what was the origin story for your book?
I was in the middle of writing a fiction book. I'm about 90% finished a fiction book, and I stopped it and started writing this. And I suppose if there was really just one reason, it was that I couldn't stand, just wanted to help people be more kind. I often notice that kindness, people say it's so easy to be kind. It's not always that easy. Sometimes kindness requires education. And being kind is very, very easy when I'm being kind to someone who looks and lives exactly the same way I do. Then, yes, kindness is very easy. But when someone is different, kindness is harder. And it
Hmm.
doesn't mean that you don't want to be kind. It just means you only know from your lived experience, and you don't entirely know what their lived experience is. And I wanted to make the world a kinder place for people who aren't necessarily like having the same lived experience as everyone else.
That's awesome. I think it's so true. I think that's why taking the high road is the idiom that it is, right? Because
Right.
it it takes extra effort. And sometimes it can almost be exhausting or can be downright exhausting to be the one who is deciding to take a pause, not react with some aggression that just adds fuel to somebody's fire,
Yeah.
and um, and come back with some kind of action or response that is well thought out, educated, and with everyone's well-being in mind. That takes effort.
So a big thing that I taught my daughter growing up was that there are 2 kinds of reactions that we have to anything, everything. There's our initial reaction and there's our processed reaction. And our initial reactions, they're rooted in lots of things, like our trauma, our past life experiences, that gut reaction that comes out of you, and somebody says something and you like charge at them. And I work a lot at, both with myself and when I teach, with understanding that that initial reaction, that might not even actually be how you feel.
Yeah,
That's your trigger. That's your past. That's your instant thought, which could be based on absolutely anything. That something that this moment reminds you of from your childhood. That's a legitimate thing that happens. So I try really hard to talk about, my daughter and I were just talking the other day, and she said something and she went, nope, nope, that's my instant reaction. Hold on. And we stops, and then sometimes you have to stop, and you have to take a pause, and you have to take a
yeah,
breath, and you have to decide, what is my processed reaction to this situation? We are very quick to give that instant reaction and then to not say, you know what? Let me back it up. Let me try that again, which is
Yeah.
okay.
So it's totally okay. And even I had a cat that did that. Like I adopted a cat and she came into my apartment. This is when I was 22 years old, and she immediately freaked out. Like she started sniffing and then she freaked out and totally spazzed out. And all of a sudden she stopped and looked at me like, uh-oh, that is not going to keep me adopted in this safe home. You just see it on her face. My sister was with me and she was like, oh my gosh. She went to my couch, put her head under my couch, and you could just see her just go, and she took 3 deep
Great.
breaths and came out and was like,
That's what we all need to do. We need to take 3 deep
over.
breaths from now on. Whenever you feel something coming up, or you're confused, or you're scared, whatever the powerful thing is that isn't love, just take 3 deep breaths. And then,
I'll usually if a kitten can do that, any human can has the ability to do that. I
what's
really
your
believe
cat's
it.
name?
Oh, this was a while ago. Her name was McTree.
McTree?
She, yeah, she was named after a cat in a Patricia Coombs book uh, called The Old Magician and McTree. And she was this orange striped cat that fell into the old magician's um, cough medicine for the annual fair.
So
And
let's do like
he
a we need a new whole slogan, a whole new campaign. Be like McTree.
be like McTree, but everyone thinks it sounds like McDonald's, and it's like, no, it doesn't come from. It's not a treat from McDonald's. It's this really cool witchy book that was way out, way before Harry Potter. Like, yeah. Anyway, yeah, she was a cool cat, but it's so true. I think when we learn to take that pause, that's also an act of bravery and
Huge,
compassion.
huge. Yes.
Just take the time to be that compassionate person, hit that reset button. If you have to even just say that, like, wait, I gotta hit that reset button. That's all I
Right.
gotta do. Just let me be the color wheel just spinning for a little bit,
Yeah.
and I'll fix this syntax error. I mean, if there's so many technological
I
terms
love
that
that
we
you
can
call
use.
it, I love that you call it a color wheel. That's so sweet. We all call it the spinning wheel of death. I've never heard anybody call it a color wheel. That's so lovely.
Rainbows have been my favorite since I was very little. I named all my pets Rainbow.
That is a riot.
So maybe that's why I was just like, oh, it's a cute little color wheel.
Everyone I know who sees it is like, I'm about to lose everything. I'm going to say to them now, no, no, it's a rainbow. It's perfect.
Oh, this is great. And then you had to rewrite the book. I
Oh
love
my
this
God.
story. If you, I know
I did have to
it's a
rewrite the
groaner.
book. I totally rewrote the book. Now, you know what? I'm thrilled about it. And thank goodness I have the publisher that I had. I have a publisher called Publish Your Purpose, and they were amazing. Uh, and when I wrote, it took me 3 years to write the book because the book is very, very heavily researched. There is a lot of, there are a lot of citations. There's a lot of, it's all proven fact. And the book was finished, and I was searching for a publisher when Trump announced that he was going to run for president again. So the book was already done. And I was nervous, but like a lot of us, I thought, well, this is going to be annoying, but he's not going to win.
Yeah.
But there was a little piece of me that was worried that, what if he would? And when I talked to publishers, I would ask the question, look, Trump is running and I'm a little nervous about what might happen and I might need to, I don't know what's going to happen. And so basically, the book was in publication, it was in the process of being published. It was long since written, it was being published, and the executive orders started coming out.
Yeah.
Against trans people and against DEI and against race and against anything that wasn't white, cis, het, you know,
Male.
yes, and able bodied human. And uh, my publisher was so great. I pulled the book. I stopped the process completely because, for example, I have a lot of case studies throughout the book. Besides that last chapter, there's case studies everywhere. And one of the case studies was on TSA, the airport security, and the things that they had been doing. And they'd been doing a lot over a long period of time. Biometric scanners, which were originally designed completely binary, they were building new ones and they were rolling out new features, and their website had all kinds of stuff for trans travelers. And there were rules that about if you had needed to be searched, that you could say, I don't want a man searching me. And that all went away. Literally overnight, it just disappeared off the website. It was all gone. And I started freaking out because all of these things that were in my book were now non-existent. And my fear was that if I published the book exactly as is, it would have been so tone deaf. It would not have said any of the things that are happening. And so I pulled it.
And you'd have lost credibility that you deserved.
So
Because that's
what
the
I
last thing we need is
Oh, I
like,
was terrified. And my publisher
yeah.
was great, and they let me pull the book, and I stopped. So the book's months later than it would have been because so I want to be careful what I say. I didn't cut anything from the book. I added to the book. I didn't cut the TSA chapter is still the TSA case study rather is still there. But
Mhm.
I added that it was taken down. I added stuff about the executive orders. I talked about, and I archived a lot of the websites that were gone. I felt like just by happenstance that I'm like the keeper of the records because I backed up any of those sites that existed that don't anymore. And even in the citations, there are saved versions of the sites that you can go to and what the current site looks like now. And I didn't get rid of anything. Instead, I talk about how wrong it is, how you don't have to listen to this just because it's happening. It isn't the actual law. The law is still protecting us, but they're making it harder and harder. So I made the book longer is what I did.
I love that. I love that because, like you said, you didn't want to cut that. You didn't want to erase what progress had been made,
Right.
but you did have to talk about the damage that
Right.
these executive
It has to be
orders have
acknowledged.
are causing.
Right.
It caused damage and it's continuing to cause damage. And why, again, we need to talk about it and make awareness a lot more part of the conversation.
Yes. It also gave me a chance to write. It was when I teach, no matter what I teach, I am I'm very informal. I'm very comfortable. I don't judge. I don't, criticize. I love to teach people things and help people with things that they want help with. And so the book is very non-judgmental. The book isn't, hey, I'm going to tell you how it is. And it's very kind uh, and careful, except all of this was happening and I pulled to write all of these things and I was so angry and I felt like it started to feel unfair to an audience that you're not actually seeing you see no emotion when I'm writing this book because that's not the point of the book isn't about me. But I did use the opportunity to add an author's note, which is me being infuriated and saying everything I think because there had to be a space in the book where I get to say something. Nothing in this book is trying to teach people. Um, I don't. This book starts from the perspective of you already know trans people are human and you want to treat them like you treat everyone else. You're just not sure because you're not sure what you know is right or not right, and you don't know what you don't know. It doesn't start from the point of if you don't like this stuff, come here and I'll argue it with you because
Right,
I'm not doing that. Um,
right.
so the author's note, it also gave me a chance to write something that was with actual emotion, which I thought the book really needed once all of this happened.
Yeah, because to me, it sounds like your book is very much a reference book. It's a
Totally.
periodical, and like you said, it's nonfiction.
Right.
Um, but I can appreciate that you had to add your human touch to it. And I have this postcard, I should grab it, from a friend of mine. She gave it to me at Galentine's Day. And
Mhm.
it's this
That's great.
woman holding up this sign, and it says, feeling your fucking feelings is part of the revolution.
That's great. I
Because I think that's also important too. I think there have been, from us Gen Xers who have had the older generations telling us to not get emotional, quit getting so emotional. Emotions have no place here. And
right.
it's kind of like, in fact, somebody I kind of sort of admired, and I'm losing a lot of respect for the every newsletter he's been sending out lately in the copywriting world has been saying, like, yeah, your feelings don't matter, and emotions have no place in brand or something like that, which is so opposite of the truth.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
emotion is everything that we do, that we're working with. We want to um, curate a certain kind of emotion with every brand, and to hear some cishet white guy say, you know, just keep your emotions out of your marketing. It's just like, what the heck are you even saying?
Like that's like don't bring your politics into work. You can only all of the people who say don't bring politics into LinkedIn or don't bring politics to work, that's people who don't that's people who have enough privilege that they don't have to even consider that some of us don't get that option.
Yeah, right.
Emotions are now there's a difference between bringing your emotions into something and making something all about you.
Of course.
That's where I would
Yep.
draw that particular line.
I
But
agree.
emotions are entirely valid, more than valid. They're what makes us, who we are. They're a huge part
Absolutely.
of us.
They're a huge part of who we are. That's what makes us human. And as this wonderful gay attorney whom I met with yesterday, and he's going to be a guest on the podcast,
Nice.
he was saying, I am so sick of discrimination that I'm done being quiet about it.
Yeah.
I just it's going to take effort to be even quiet, polite. It's um,
It's
we've
hard,
had
right?
to be very polite and hold our own hands, sit on our hands, bite our tongues for so long, and it's time to speak up. I'm
Yeah.
going to still try to add as much glitter to that as I can and try to show up with love first.
Yeah.
But I'm also going to show up at some protest rallies.
It's tough. It's tough and it's fair to say that a lot of us have been expected to be polite and quiet for a long time. There's um, I always think about this. My grandmother was always this lovely, one of the most lovely humans ever. And she was always polite and she was always, still. And then when she reached a certain age, and I don't know if you're familiar with the archetype, the maiden mother crone of women, and she was the mother, she was the mother of all of us. And she never had a bad word to say about anybody. And then she reached this certain age and she got kind of mean. And one day she just looked at me and she said, "You know what? I'm tired of being nice because I have to be. I want to be nice because I want to be." And I was like, I think you've earned that. And I think that's a lot of us are starting to feel like that. That's not just a
Yeah.
menopause thing, that's a which
No.
that's a I'm tired of being expected to not bring politics to work. I'm tired of being disrespected and smiling through it. And it's amazing what you're doing, bringing glitter to this because so many people are are furious and it's legitimate fury.
Yep.
And
Rage. Yeah.
and how do you bring that fury and still get people to hear you? Because now you're just angry. Now you're just Now nobody's getting what you're trying to say. And I think about that all the time. It's totally legitimate, but without people like you bringing giggles to this furious, infuriating topic,
Yeah,
how is anybody going to be able to listen?
right.
So
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for what you're doing. I think it's wonderful.
Well, thank you. You just gave me all kinds of goosebumps. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate what you do. I just admire all the work that you do. And I love your entirely holistic approach. How unique is that? Talking about technology and gender and everything that makes people uncomfortable at work, including meditation. So, talking about gratitude, who else do you want to give some gratitude? I appreciate the gratitude you just shared with me.
Yes, so you are high on my list of
Ah,
for gratitude, people that are delivering kindness uh, through all of this. I think it's so easy to be swallowed up by it right now, you
yeah.
know. Um, and so, honestly, when there's an opportunity for me to give gratitude to someone, it's my daughter. My daughter she's the dedication in my book. It's just me and her, really. Like, my mom's around, like there are people, but I'm a single parent. I'm an only child and a single parent. And she is my life. And she is actually the source of teaching me to face my own fears and discomfort. So I am forever grateful to my daughter for showing me what it looks like to be me in a smaller form.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, that's so cool. And how awesome that you got to bring this beautiful human into the world and let her have her impact.
Yeah, I still can't believe she picked me. I thank her all the time for that.
Well, what can we do for you? How can we help you? What do you need from us?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, I need to spread the word about this book. I want more allies to download the free chapter, to buy the book. The book is on my website, and you can get it at genderinclusionatwork.com. And there's, like I said, the free chapter is a great way to figure out if this is something that is helpful, you know.
Yeah.
But telling other people, I'm setting up something on my site, actually, when we are done, to buy an extra copy that I can donate to a library. Um,
Oh, cool.
so, that is a great, spreading the word for me right now is a great, great way to help me help the
Yep.
world.
In fact, if hot tip, if anyone has the ISBN of your book, which I will put in the podcast notes and in the description, um, they can actually go to their favorite librarian and say, please, please order this for me.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yep. So, and then any librarian should be happy to order the book. You get the benefit of them buying the book. The library will buy the book,
Mhm.
and somebody can check it out for free. But if they need to keep it on their shelf for a while, then obviously they're going to want to buy it for themselves.
Yeah, it's definitely a reference book. And because it's got every department, there are a lot of pieces of it that you don't even need to read yet. And you might change jobs and want to read that department. But I really, honestly, there's nothing I feel more passionate about than just helping people face their own discomfort and stop being silent, because so many of us don't want to be silent anymore. We just don't know what to say.
100%. 100%. And what an easy thing to do for somebody to, in the smallest way, just share your podcast, share your clips that I'm going to post in YouTube shorts of you saying your little bits of wisdom, and keep spreading it around, because I think your story is such a powerful one. Your passion is contagious, and in a good way, it's infectious. We want to
Not in a
catch that
disease
bug.
way.
Yeah, we want to catch that bug. And I think, you know, thank you so much for putting all of that effort into writing this almost 500-page reference book
I can't believe
that
it.
anyone can use. I mean, seriously, that is quite an accomplishment, and obviously well resourced. And uh, I'm just so glad that you put your little human touch in there too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being you. Thank you so much for being here. And we'll share all of your contact information and a link for your book in the podcast.
Thank you.